Hello, everyone. So another person just coming in. It's obviously Sunday morning itis. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Okay, I don't see any aspirations coming in on the chat, so maybe we need to talk and people can just express themselves. So just, it's nice to chat to you all, nice to see some faces this early on a Sunday morning. And it's always nice to have the opportunity to kind of share a bit of information, but also to find out information from you guys and what you need, what's working for you, what we do provide, and what's missing. So if I could just do a very quick around the room, because it's a small enough group, which is great. And again, there's no obligation to speak if you don't want to, but it would be lovely to hear from you. And you can do that in any way. Use the chat, send a private message to me through the chat if you don't want it to be into the room, or just speak. Put your hand up if you're struggling to get a word in edgeways, and I'll just get to people then in turn through that, so everyone can be heard and can have time to be asking questions and so on. So just if you're happy to unmute, that would be great, so we can just chat. So I'm curious to see what you're expecting this morning. What are your thoughts? What do you expect to be happening for the next hour and a bit? We're going to have to get warmed up quick, guys. The time will fly. Are you looking for, were you expecting a skills session? So I'm going to be teaching you how to navigate. Were you looking to be talking about what we could do for you from a hill walking perspective as a youth club, or a young person, or a parent?
I thought it might be a skills session.
Yeah, no, well, that's true. That is what it's sold as. That's good. I recently went. Go on, sorry.
I thought the same was a skill session, but I'm open to anything that comes up.
Good. Okay. No, skills is what was sold, so that's perfect. I was recently on a workshop, and about, I'd say 40 minutes through, the presenter realized we all thought we were on a different course. Yeah, and we all were supposed to be on a different course, but she was teaching a different course, so we're going to do the proper one soon. So that's why, one of the reasons why I'm asking. But equally, like, this is a skills session. I have all my map stuff and my kind of materials right next to me here to teach, and that's exactly what I want to do, and it's great. But equally, if there are other things, it's a good opportunity to talk to you. Other suggestions and ideas, have a think in the back of your head of what we could be doing to help you kind of going forward when you get back out, and so on. Just, jot them down, and we will have a bit of time at the end, maybe, or during, to raise them. So another quick question then, where are you guys at? Do you navigate a bit? Are you rusty? Have you been doing loads of training courses before? Someone's just popped into the thing there about how to teach. So yeah, definitely. That's how to teach is always a tricky one, because if you're in a club and you're trying to share information, or your mate wants to know how you do that with the compass, or whatever it is that you can show them how to share that knowledge, because a lot of what we learn in clubs is from people around us, or that we walk with, our school friends, or whatever, parents, you pick it up. So good, yeah. So orienteering is being mentioned there. It's a fantastic way to learn to navigate. Competitions go on in normal times. So that's a great resource if you're trying to find somewhere to practice your navigation skills. Orienteering competitions are excellent. They're well manned and looked out for, and you can use the map then to get around a course and walk. You can do difficult, easy sessions. So that could be really good to get your land reading skills up to speed. And if you get lost, there's usually people there to kind of gather you in. But yeah. Yeah.
I'm somebody who joined a Hillwalking group, and we were doing well until lockdown came. And with that, I got used to following the leader. But since then, I've been going out on my own up here in the Mourne Mountains. And I did a course prior to lockdown on navigation skills. And so I've been trying to put that into practice. And that's something that I'd like to learn a lot more about, is just the whole navigation thing, because at the moment, going out on my own, it's grand when it's a clear day, but I've got caught out twice in fog, and it was a bit of a problem. And, you know, I wish I would have known a little bit more about the navigation skills in the fog, how to work it when you're in the fog. So something on that, maybe.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. Any other use maps, but not so much compass work? Yeah, we can have a look at that. Used to following a guide only. Well, that's fine. Like, I mean, you have to learn somewhere. You know, you have to kind of do stuff safely. And if you need someone else like a club to support you to do that, or hire an instructor, or you hire a guide to bring you walking every time, that's fine. It's a responsible thing to do in some ways, because it means then that you'll be safe. And hopefully you might use that guide to teach you a bit, pick up some things, so that then you can become more and more independent, which at the end of the day, I think, is what everybody wants, and is potentially why it's difficult when you're not an adult. You don't have access to a car, but you are dependent on your parents or your school or whoever it is, your scout group and so on, to bring you places and to teach you stuff. So just to let you know, we do have schemes and courses that people can do on our website. There's loads and loads of information. The main scheme for today's session that I would direct you towards will be mountain skills, and it's just what it says it is. So it's open to people, and I'm desperately trying to gauge the age of our youngest, well, the ones I can see anyway, the youngest people in the room. Hi. Yeah. How are you doing? I'm not sure what age you are. Oh, perfect. You just happen to fall the right side. That's brilliant. Our scheme, the Mountain Skills Scheme, is open to 10-year-olds and up. So, and the reason that there is even an age on there is about being robust enough, being able to take instruction well enough, and so forth. But honestly, I know a lot of younger kids than that, who are well able to learn to navigate and well able to take instruction. Look at gymnasts, like they start at like 0 practically, and they certainly do know how to do all those things, and they're very strong and robust. So but yeah, so that scheme, the Mountain Skills Scheme, would bring you to read maps, to look at hazards, what equipment to wear, how to use the compass, work at night, and then poor visibility, how to negotiate through terrain that might be a bit tricky, that you might want to avoid and go around, how to find routes through things like that. And there's 4 days worth of training in that, usually split over a couple of weekends, and then a good few sessions that you go off and practice. You could do a first aid course as well, and then you come back, there's a 2-day assessment if you want to. So all of the skills I'm going to go through with you today, they'd all be a part of a mountain skills program. The other thing I'll definitely direct you towards, on the website about 4 or 6 years ago, I can't remember now, I did a few videos, short kind of 2 to 4 minute videos on taking a bearing, features in the land, and the map, map setting, self-location, finding where you are on the ground and on the map. So they're short, There's also a number of videos on navigation skills. So a lot of what we do today will equally be in those skills. They're about 60 to 90 minutes long. Some of the, like their classrooms, there's tasks being set. People are getting troubleshooting and they're not working it out, and we're fixing that for them. So there's a series of videos on navigation, and particularly John, you mentioned as well, there's I did a series of poor visibility sessions. So those are also about 60 to 90 minutes long, and they're on the website as well. So in the mountain training section on the website, if you go into, just click onto mountain training, and on the left-hand side, you'll see skills videos on one of the side, and just scroll through. They're up on YouTube. So, so you can stop, start. I'm not suggesting that you sit there for, it's probably about 15 hours worth of lectures at this point, but just pick out what you need, just have a look at the bits that you need, and kind of come and go with them. But they're there as resources to use, which is why I'm recording this one as well, because that's why it's a really useful thing to kind of have these resources, so you can go back and look over what we've done today, and it'll mean probably a bit more to you guys because you were there. So the other pathway that may be of interest as well is we have a series of leadership awards. So I know somebody in the chat mentioned that they're going for their Lowland Leader Assessment soon. So this person is going to be very focused on learning, very, very open to learn stuff, because they're going to be tested on it fairly soon. So they're the best kind of learners. They're like, they're listening and hang on every word, and they're sitting there thinking, will you get on with the skills? I really need the skills. So there's a whole series of videos there, Jenny, that will help kind of focus you in, and especially in the times we're in at the moment where your brain has been switched off, and then just even if you've been going out and walking, you're still going to be switched off a bit because you've not got the groups and all of that kind of stuff. It's difficult. So the Lowland Leader, it's the first of 3 hill walking awards. Well, the Lowland Leader is in, as it sounds, the Lowlands. It's an entry-level award, so you don't need to have done another qualification to get into it. The same with the mountain skills, is entry level, so you can start, have an interest, know you want to do these things, but you can get launched into, well, Jenny will tell us when she's done her assessment that it's a reasonable assessment, that it's a reasonable award, and it's a very interesting training course. Like, you cover so many different things. It's a really interesting course, but it's a qualification that you can start when you're 17, so a little bit of time to go, Annie and Eva. But it is something that you can pick up on once you've learned to navigate in the mountain skills, that end of things, that then you can kind of follow on and potentially have a leadership qualification by the time you're 18 in the Lowlands. So that to me is a really good thing, where when I was kind of coming through, you had to be 21, I think, to do your mountain leader, and there was only the mountain leader, so it was a bit more involved and time consuming. So you could potentially end up at college as a leader, ready to go, and that way then as well, particularly at this audience for youth, that you're starting college with a qualification to lead. You're not starting college wondering, how do I navigate? So you're already ahead of the posse. You're more likely to get involved with that committee in college and develop training in your club early. So I think getting started earlier as well, particularly unfortunately with women, you get sidetracked with so many things at that age around university. Your career and family starts to come into play, and all these kind of things, and for men, but in a different way. If you're already further along that pathway, you're more likely to get further up that pathway and get onto the higher qualifications, and where the real fun starts, maybe for you, depends on what you want to do. So just to kind of factor that in, so early is good. Start early is really good, and your brains are best able. You guys, Annie and Eva, are the most able in the room to absorb new because you're young. So sorry guys, the rest of you, I can't see those with the screens off, but you're on your way to losing brain cells. Sorry. So yeah, do it while you're young, while your brains are in the best form, and you'll fly. Okay, so let's start with some of the sessions. So what I want to have a look at today is to look at the groundwork, so the actual features. It'll be a bit of a potted tour because there's a lot to cover. So if you have a map in front of you, It would be really nice if you could turn the screens on, guys, because I'm very dependent on these 6 people I can see at the moment, one of which is myself, to get reactions. So if if you can turn on your screen, it would be great, just even to see the faces so that I can tell if you're getting it or not. I'd really appreciate that. So what I want you to have a look at, I'm just going to turn the chat off. Well, not turn it off, just put it out of my view so I've got a bigger screen. Just wave frantically if I'm not responding to something in the chat. So I just turned it off so I can see the screen better. So just on your map, what I would always start with is what a map is about. So if you think of it, that you maybe have all used maps before, I'm not too sure, but if you're trying to teach this to someone, so if a lot of this is new, not news to you, think about what I'm saying and how I'm saying it in terms of teaching for that person that was asking how to teach stuff. So kind of put your shoes on at that angle if it's all familiar to you. But on the map, the way I try to look at it is from the helicopter looking down onto the land. So if you were to carry a full-size map, it wouldn't fit in the bag. It'd be too big, and you could go for a little walk on a small few meters of land. So we scale it down so that you can fit more information on a smaller piece of paper and bring it up the mountains. And in order to do that, you have to use symbols, because there's not room to put every tree, every wall, every house. It's just not the space for it on the map. And the other thing that you do from looking down on the helicopter, so if you imagine you're looking down at Ireland from your helicopter view and you're up high enough to see the shore around Ireland, you would see that the water and then the land, you'd see patches of lakes, and maybe you'd see some rivers and some of the bigger rivers and streams. You might see that the mountain ranges are all roughly around the coasts, but not all entirely. But you'd get that overview of the country. And if you're hill walking then and you want to navigate, that overview might be fine if you're flying a plane and you want to get from the top to the bottom of the country, but it wouldn't be good enough information if you wanted to navigate up to, say, climb Carrantoul or something. It would be too vague, too general. You'd know there's a high bit down there in a range of mountains, but it wouldn't be enough information. So they zoom in, and also they zoom in the way it's lined up. So if you're looking at that map of Ireland from your helicopter, the top of the country would be the north, as we all know, the bottom would be the south. So it's orientated, it's lined up the way that the land actually is. And that's what we talk a lot about, that when we're navigating, about orientating the map. So I'm sure in geography class, you'll have been taught a lot of this stuff, but maybe from inside the classroom all the time. Ideally, we should be outside, but we're not at the moment. We're online. So if you're looking at your map, I just picked one of Wicklow. It's just the handiest one. So at the top of my map, that's north. And at the bottom of the map is south. Okay, I know this seems really basic information. It's fundamental. It's not simple. It's fundamental. So pretty much any map you're going to use, north is up on the map. But not all. Orienteering maps, sometimes they'll take a bit of map and they'll turn it because it fits on the page better. And then you'll see that they'll have drawn where north is if the arrow isn't straight up. So yeah, good. Get your map out on the floor. That's perfect. That's exactly what you should be doing. Or out on I had a map table. People used to laugh in my office. It's like, that's my desk, but that's my map table, always. You need to spread this out. The other thing that you can do, if there's a couple of you in the room there, if your map is of where you live, you can set your map to your house. So I live in Wicklow, and if I look out my front window, the sea is down to my left and Dublin is behind me and the south of Ireland is straight ahead. So it's not quite as perfect as that, but it's roughly north behind me and south in front of me. My front window is slightly off south, but so that's me then. If I know that the top of the map is north, and I know where Dublin is and where Kerry is and where the sea is, and I'm on the east coast, I can turn my map then and line it up as though I was sitting up in that helicopter and turning it the way that the land actually is. That's called orientating your map. So if you know, if you've got landmarks outside your house, or you've got a map of where you live in front of you right now, you can pick it out and you can turn it, because you'd know your local area very well. You'd know which way the town is in relation to where your house is, or whatever that is. And that's called orientating your maps. Always kind of start these things from home, something tangible where you know. Are you all in a position to set your map that way, to line it up with the actual place you are? Yeah, I see some great activity moving around the house, trying to find the front window. You're dead right now, because you have to, because even me, I know where I live, but I'm still having to think, is the sea actually? No, the sea's probably a little bit more to the front and less to the side. So you kind of do realize you need to see these places for it to be very tangible in your hand. But that map setting can also be done if you know where north is on the map straight up and you have a compass. The needle will float to north as well. So if you can't see, if it's bad visibility and you can't see these landmarks around you, you don't have the local knowledge to know where your house is in relation to everything else, your needle and the compass will tell you where north is. And that way you've got two knowns then. You've got the compass needle saying where north is, and you've got your map saying where north is. You can line the two up then, can't you? So if you do have a compass and if you do have a map, if you watch for just a sec, what I'll do is I'll just take this compass in my hand. It only works horizontal. If I hold it up, the needle will stick wherever it is. But if I lie it flat, so it can float around. So yeah, like that. So just if you look how Eva's old, is it? I'm not sure which is which, but Annie's got the compass, is it? Eva? Yeah, Annie's got the compass and Eva's got the compass. So if you hold them flat, like, yeah, like Annie's got it. Perfect, thank you. Then it will work, it'll float. And I do the same with my map. And I'm going to put this just on the top of the map. All right, so you're all going to be looking like a bird, the helicopter, straight down onto your map now. And what I'm going to do, so you know I've got my compass sitting on it, I'm going to look straight down onto it, and I'm going to turn the two together like this until the red, that's the north end of the needle, points straight up my map, straight to the top of my map. Okay, so try to forget that you know where north is. Just put the compass on, pick up the map and the compass flat. That you're giving me such a great diagram there, girls. Honestly, that's what you should be doing there. You're turning the map with the compass sitting on it, and eventually they'll get it lined up so that that red needle's pointing straight up the map. Is that right, girls? Yeah. And is the writing when you look at the map, is the writing the right way up? When you've got it, yeah, perfect. That's another check. Because if you think about it, if you got your map folded up like mine, you might not be able to see where the top of the map is. And you could easily think you've got it lined up with the top of the map when it's the side of the map. But the writing won't be the right way up. The map makers are nice that way. They like to write the writing the right way up. So so again, if we have our maps folded small when we're walking, as we often do, just to be conscious, check the writings the right way up, and the north's pointing to the top, and the map is at the top, and the compass is at the top, and all of that. So once you've got that information, now I know when I look out my front window, it's pretty much south. It's not, it's a good bit off south out my front window. And I know that because the sun comes up just to the left of my front window and swings around, and I get the south across this side of my house at the back. So I kind of know that that's wrong because the sun comes up in the east. So, so once you've got your map lined up and you're standing somewhere on that map, when you look to the north on your map and look to the north on the land, they should be what you're seeing. And if you look south, it should show you what to expect down south. And the same for the east and for the west and so on. So it's a really useful thing to have the compass. That in some ways, that's probably the most useful thing of the compass, because it gives you that reference. You use what you see on the map as well, because that gives you the information, the evidence on the land. So if I'm standing here, I should see a river that way, and I should see a stream over there, and I should see a mountain over there. So once you've got it lined up, you know everything is as it would be sitting in that helicopter looking down. It's all lined up in the right direction. That's called orientating your map. And when you're navigating, that's what you should be doing all the time. So if I'm walking north and then I need to turn and walk to the side, then rather than, I'm not going to turn my map so it's still pointing the way I'm going, I'm going to keep my map fixed and I'm going to walk around the side and carry it and go that way, if that makes sense. So the map is always set to the land, and if I need to change direction, I move around it. It stays fixed to where the land is. The reason why people often get disorientated, it could be the weather comes in, so they lose all those visual clues of where the forest is or the lake is or whatever. You just can't see it. They're all still there. And that's where a compass can come into play to kind of give you that confirmation that it is the right way. It is lined up when you can't see it to prove it. So, and to take that a step on then, if you've got it lined up and you're seeing a river in front of you and a lake is behind you, then you can use those bits of information and confirm that where you think you are. If it's lined up and you think you're next to the lake, but you're not, so you're next to a forestry and there's no lake in sight, then you're not where you think you are, you see. So it's that's why it is probably one of the most fundamental bits of information is getting your map set. If you ever lose track of where you are, if you ever I'm not sure, that's the first piece of information. And one of those videos actually, it's the procedure for finding yourself, self-location video. That's what it talks through. This is the first thing you're always going to do: stop, set your map. And the second thing that you'd always do is look in front of you, look behind you, look left and right, and get actual information off the land first. Even if it's pea super, even if it's really misty, you can still tell if it's going down or up or flat in any direction. You can still see if there's a lake there or water, or if it's a hill or it's a drop or a forestry. You can gather evidence from all four sides, and that will start to build a picture in your head, even if you can't see very much, as to where you are. So okay, so are we drilled on map setting? We're happy enough to know how to set it. I'm sorry I spent a bit of time on that, but I think it's really important. And the other thing from that, you've just used your compass. Okay, I don't generally bring compasses in until people are good on land reading, but for that, I think it's really important that you understand when you're doing your map setting, do it by land and by eye first, and then check it with your compass. A bit like your calculator, you know what to expect. You just want to double check you've not made a silly mental arithmetic error. You do your land and you get your evidence and you set your map, then you can check the direction is right with your compass. Okay, so the other thing I mentioned, and do chip in if you have questions. Oh, I see 3 comments in chat, one sec. Oh yeah, don't worry if you can't find a map of your area. Sorry, that was asked a couple of minutes ago. I didn't see it until just now. Any map can still be set, whether you're in the place or somewhere else. So hopefully you've gotten over that. Don't worry if you don't have a map of your own area. When you do find one, you can practice setting it for where you live. If I missed any other questions, I thought I saw 3 comments in chat, but I can only see 1. No. Okay, yeah, it's the same. Right, so the other thing I mentioned was the symbols, that you use symbols to show stuff on the map because you couldn't fit the real things. So in a nutshell, blue is generally water, rivers, lakes, streams, sea, drainage channels sometimes if they're dead straight. Then land, they use shading. So you'll see the colors on the you look on the legend or the key. I don't see it on this one. And you can find where they show some of the contour lines. There we go, that's what I'm looking for. So if you see, this is just an ordnance survey map. So if you see there, just on the screen, are you able to see these when I put them up?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could share my screen, but then I'd lose all the feedback. Do you want me to share the screen for this? Yeah, I'm being selfish now because I like to see who I'm talking to. Bear with me a sec. Oh no, it's not going to work. I'll put my, it will, one sec. I'll just change the view. You can change the view to speak. I can just change it to speaker view. Is that better? So
Kind of the same, I think.
it looks just the same, does it?
So,
Okay, I'll leave it back again then. Oh, hang on, I think it's this one. Is that better? No, just the same. I'll leave it as was. So just what I was showing you there was the different colors of shade that they use to show getting darker and going from green in the valley to brown in the uplands. So you get a general gist of where the mountains are and where the valleys are. You can see this area up on the screen now. So there's a section here that's all highlands, and you can see the valleys in the green around them and where the water's more likely to sit in the valleys, the river valleys and the lakes. Okay, can you see that, guys? Yeah. So that gives you a very quick visual. So brown is uplands and green is lowlands and various shades in between. The other general kind of sweeping through all the symbols, black lines generally for man-made features. So road edges, houses in little blocks like houses, and depending on what scale map, you might have walls and fences marked as well in kind of greys and blacks. But so you can see then once you're onto the land, the main feature for a navigator, after using all the man-made features of land, roads and forestry and so forth, would be the contour lines. So the contour lines on the map, if you can imagine that helicopter visual of Ireland, and you can see the entire shoreline of Ireland, and then loads of ice caps melted and it rose up another 10 meters higher. So the sea levels rose by 10 meters. That shape of Ireland would be a little bit different. And if it rose another 10 meters, that shape would become different again. It would get smaller and smaller and smaller. There'd be islands start to appear around Ireland, like in Ireland, as the water fills in some of those valleys. And then as it keeps rising, eventually you'll end up with a few tiny peaks, the highest peaks in the country, little tiny circles of land poking out at these high sea levels. So an orienteering line, a contour line is that shape, if you imagine, around Ireland with the sea level rising. So every time the sea level is 10 meters higher, they'll draw exactly what shape that land is, that shoreline that you've created. And you'll see on your map, there's quite a lot of shorelines all over the country. Those are the contour lines. So they're drawing an area that's the same height. And if you can imagine on, if you've got contour lines, if you've got my hand here, for example, as I get nearer to the top of the peak, it's going to become a little ring contour because it's just the top. But as you go down and turn it sideways, it's going to be a bigger contour line, like more area to include all these tops at that height. And if I go down a bit more, it's going to be a bigger area again. And you can start to see that there's little features that the contour line is going to drive in and out of, but all at that, what's happening at that height. And you're going to see tops, which will be marked on the contour lines if they fall where that contour line falls. And you're going to see little features start to appear. So we've got saddles. So in the gaps between my knuckles, that feature there would be called a saddle or a col. It's between two peaks. And this feature down my finger, if I look at it from the side, I'll put it out another little bit further, just make it a bit wider. That would be a spur. Okay, if I spread my fingers a little bit, so you can see now that I've got multiple spurs coming off the summit. Okay, and as a hill walker, you may choose to go up this one, go to the summit, and then go down that one because you want a different way back. Okay, and no two of them are going to point exactly the same way. So when you're trying to navigate, you want something that looks a bit different. So you can tell when you get to the top here, well, my car's down here. I don't want to go down that one because I'll end up too far away from it. And I definitely don't want to go down this one because that's miles away and I'll have to go over all these peaks to get to it, all these spurs to get around to it. So if I want to get down here, I want to set my map. And if I've got my map lined up right, then there's only one that's going that direction. The rest are going slightly different ways. And that's why the map setting, again, is so useful. To get yourself down the correct direction. So what I want you to do, I know that's a lot of theory and in your head, is take your map. I have these wee models that I use. They've been really handy. I've had them about 15 years now. They're just cardboard from an old kind of 3D jigsaw. And I've created what you will see on your map. You see all these lines. So looking at it from the helicopter, the bird's eye, you'll see lots of lines, contour lines, from above, because that's what your map is. You're looking at it from above. And then to just bring the two together, when you're on the mountain, like my knuckles, can you see the topography, the land shape from the side? So when you're climbing a mountain and you're saying, are we there yet? Are we there yet? You might be coming up one of these kind of spurs that just go on forever. And they're just flat, 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 flat and gentle. And eventually you get up to where you can see, yeah, we're at the top now. Okay, so that's what the contour lines are trying to show you. But obviously, it's not what you're really seeing. You're more likely seeing this 3D model on the land. Okay, so it's not that navigation is rocket science, but it is complex because you're transferring from the map, which is a model of lines in 2 dimensions, to the reality, which does not have lines drawn all over it, telling you where the contours sit. And it's got lots of stuff in between the gaps. It's not like textbook, it's land, it's natural. So, well, most of it. So it's going to be complex to translate the bird's eye view on your map to the tangible view on the land. But it does come, it will come with practice. So on your map, you found some contour lines, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Can you find some places where it looks like this? These kind of things? Mm-hmm. Pick out some of those. Yeah. What are they called? What do you call them? There's a few names for them. If you want to just tick off your microphones and just chip in there, guys. Or you can put it in the chat anyway, whichever suits you. What would you call those things?
A knoll or a spot
Could
height.
be a knoll. Yeah, a spot height, or if it's got a dot on a number on it, it's a spot height. If it's a knoll is another name.
A tor. Or
a tor, yeah. What other thing could it be?
Could be a summit, trig points or something like that.
Yeah. It could be a summit, a top of a mountain. If it's got a triangle on it, drawn on the map, it's a trig point, and it means on the summit there'll be a concrete pillar. You've probably seen those if you've been up peaks.
Oh, yeah.
It'll have a concrete pillar on the top with a little metal section that you can attach surveying implements to. So that's a trig point. They're always very reassuring because you've got something man-made on the top of the mountain. Everyone feels happy that they're definitely not lost. Where some tops can be very roundy and not very reassuring when you get there. Like if you think of Connemara with its big flat plateaus, and the top could be like 2 kilometers wide, because it looks more like that than anything else. So, all right. So you found some tops, so summits, tops, trig points, spot heights, but they
Could be
all
a-
of them. Sorry.
Could be like just a little ring contour on the map.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure. Like these, depending on how big scale this model I've got. Do you know what I mean? If this is the Top of Karen tool, then it would, there'd be lots more contour lines below it. It would be a big feature. But if this is just a little blip covering about, it's only like 20 meters across, could be a lot more detail and so on. So you've all found some tops and spots. And in terms of what they look like from a walker's perspective, they're a top. So if you're at the side of a mountain looking at the mountain, picture a classic sugarloaf shape, your pointy peak. Then that's what you're going to see from the side, your profile view. So when you're walking up it, you can see the pointy bit, like I'm going to get to the top of that mountain. That's what you're going to see from the side. That's what you're going to see from the map. And the other thing as well is if I'm standing on this side or this side or that side, it's going to look different, your perspective, because you're looking at it from the other side or from a different side. Okay, so you can go up a mountain one way, come down another way, and it's like you're doing a whole different mountain again because you're seeing it from somewhere else. Okay, so plenty of looking behind you when you're walking, looking at things from different perspectives, different views, because it's just interesting. All right, so something else I'm going to get you to find now. So we've done tops. And as a formula for your features, a top goes in the 4 directions and you're in the mist and you get this. What information would you receive when you look in front, back, left and right? What information is going to make you say, oh, we're on a top?
Everything's gone down away from you.
Yeah. So that's the definition. All down on all 4 sides. Okay, and we can use that to describe any of the features now that we're going to look at. It just is helpful because, like I say, it's nature we're looking at, and that can confuse matters. It's not textbook sometimes. So in between these peaks, I want you to have a look for one of those on your map. The name of that I said was a saddle, so you can visualize it. Yeah, in that gap, the saddle. Have a look for some of those. They come in all shapes and sizes. The other name for it is a coll. Okay, coll or a saddle.
Here and here.
Yeah, you finding a few? Yeah, great. Okay, and again, stop me if I'm moving on too fast, guys. But from the side, I'll move it in a bit. You can see there's 2 high points and then the saddle in the gap. And if I'm looking at it from the end, you can see you would walk over and in and over and into it and over and into it. And if I was coming up from the side of the mountain into the gap, I'd come up, over and drop down the other side. So often you would go use them to get onto a ridge line. Okay, you finding them okay? So if I was standing in that saddle and I was in bad weather and checking out what's happening immediately around me, front, back, left and right, what am I going to get? What's it going to tell me to make me think it's a saddle?
Rising on 2 sides and dropping on 2 sides.
Yeah, it's going up on 2 sides and dropping on 2 sides. Anyone any different definition? You're all happy with that? Think of a Pringle. Okay. Hey?
A ridge.
A ridge. Yeah. So what this 1, 2, 3, this here would be a ridge line. Okay, so on a ridge, it's going to drop off and drop off, but be pretty much flattish at tops in general, the whole thing. With a saddle, it's going to drop off and drop off, but it's going to go up to the peak and up to the peak. So a little bit like a Pringle crisp or a saddle of a horse. It's going to drop where your legs go, and then it'll go up to the horse's head and up a bit to the backside. Okay, that's your saddle. The ridge drops on both sides, but it's generally fairly flat front and back. Okay, so if you think of the ridge back that you're going to follow. So have a look on your map. A lot of the time when you find tops, they'll have dots on them and you'll find them in a line. So where I described, see there's a range of mountains along here. This would be your ridge. Okay, so you're going to do a ridge walk, you collect and climb lots and lots of peaks. But on the way, you'd be going into saddles, over tops, all the way along it. But the whole thing would be the ridge walk. Okay, so in general, on a ridge, it will drop down and be roughly flat. You're not going down to sea level and back up and down to sea level and back up. You're staying up on a height. If that makes sense. Yeah, great. Okay. So the other feature I'd mentioned, if you see on here now, that often we use these as hill walkers to get off the peak or up the peak. Say I got up to this one, didn't want to go back the way I'd come, so I want to go down this peak here. I'm going to use this spur, right? So it's sticking out. If this slope was uniform, these contour lines would just be round, but they're not. They bulge, and they bulge, and that's the spur. So again, you can see the spur from above a bit tatty on the end there now. So if you're looking at it from the bottom of the hill, you're going to walk up and onto your top. Just see if there's any there. That's quite an obvious spur going up here. So if you're trying to navigate on a spur, it's like it's a line feature. So if you start to drop downhill, you've gone off the side of it. Okay, so you stay on it. And I always like to think of, I am actually a child, really. I always like to think of when you used to play aeroplanes. As well, maybe some of us still play them. But when you put your arms out and if you're walking up a spur, your two wings would be pretty flat. But if you start to swing off the side of the spur, you've gone off it because your wings are no longer flat anymore. And even in bad weather, you can be really, your perceptions can be a little bit warped because you can't see and your vision isn't the way it normally is. But if you stand there and you put your arms out and see, is the land going down to my right? So put it where it is my land going up to my left or down? And put it up, you realize you're on a slope sideways. If you're both pointing down, then you're on the backbone of something. And it's fundamental. But that technique can be really useful as well if you're following along a line feature, say a river, and you're trying to find the bend in the river. Now, rivers are invariably vague. They're natural, they're curvaceous, and they wind. They don't just do a 90-degree bend that they draw on the map. They're gradual and they can be deceptive because they're not like a drawing of two straight lines, they're curves. So if you stand, say, and you're looking for this bend in the river, and you're standing where you think it is, and you put your arm down this part of the river and your arm down that part of the river, and you stand there, you'll see that it's not straight. If you did it on a straight section of river, then your two arms would be in a line. So that can be a really useful technique to decide if you're on a bend or if the feature is. So don't dismiss the whole aeroplane as a kid's game. It's really useful in the mountains. And I know now, Jenny, on your assessment, I know what you're going to be doing. Flying around the mountain walks, but it's very useful on tracks and trails. And what you're really doing is checking the aspect of things, what way it's pointing. So it's a very useful technique to do that if you're not quite sure. And the same in bad weather, John, where you're not sure you're going the right direction, or that you've changed direction. And you do the hand thing, particularly on, say, forest corners in the dark. You think you've not really gone around the corner, but then you put your arms out and it's like, yeah, that's actually quite different directions. I have gone around the corner. So it takes away the human aspect. Sometimes you can't always judge things very well because the visibility is poor and so on, and it removes that human error of thinking that you're going straight when you're actually curving quite a bit. Okay, I'm trying to think other features that we may have missed. Saddle spur, yeah. So one other feature I will mention, and it's often overlooked because everybody knows what it is the valley. So where a spur, the contour lines bulge out of the slope, the natural shape of the slope, they stick out. A valley is this side where it sticks into the slope. So when you're standing on a spur, what would be the information that would tell you you're on a spur, where the 4 sides down for a summit, the 2 up, 2 down for the saddle? What would a spur tell you?
3 sides, it's down in front of you and to 2 sides, and should be either rising behind you if you're going down, or rising in front of you going up.
Okay, so
falling away both sides.
So just think, just stand yourself in one place, and just it will be going down on 3 sides and up on 1, no matter what way you're facing. Okay, because I know you're kind of turning around on the spur, but it's going to be going up on 1 side and down on 3, no matter what way you're looking. Okay, and that's why it's a really useful tool, because it cuts the human, oh, but what if, and it just brings it back into fundamental. So with that in mind, then, if you imagine a valley is the flip side of a spur, what's going to happen with it when you gather your evidence? Now, you can mentally stand in a valley, visualize it, and look along the valley and see it doing this, and this on the side. So someone else this time, maybe. What's that valley information going to tell you?
It's going down in front of you on the 2 sides. It's going to be going up.
And the last side behind you, then?
It'll also be going up as well.
Yeah, so 3 up, 1 down. So it's the opposite, if you like, of a spur. Yeah. Okay, so that's exactly what you're going to see in a valley. And the difference, like the other thing there as well, the other feature that I've not yet mentioned, but we've just described, valley is an epic feature. It's massive. So it will be over many contour lines, over a number of kilometers, and so on. It's a big feature. But a smaller version of that's not so well discussed, I suppose, is a reentrant. So again, it's the same shape. So in here, there's an example of a reentrant. All right, that's not an epic feature. It's not enormous and massive. It's just in 1 or 2 contour lines in this particular instance. So it's doing exactly the same thing, up on 1 in 3 sides and down on 1, the same way as a valley. But it's if you like, it's a micro feature, a small feature, small version of that. And it's the same here on the big spur. You've got a twin spur, just little ones here.
Okay.
Yeah, and a little tiny reentrant between the 2. Once you start looking, you'll find loads and loads of little features all over the contour lines, because like a river, they're not straight. They're never straight. So once you start looking, you'll find little reentrants and little spurs everywhere. Yeah. Okay. So that's why once I feel like I'm taking away your look at nature. If you're not familiar, it just brings it all back down to features now. When you look up at the mountains, like, oh yeah, I'll follow that spur, and then I'll get onto the ridge, go through that saddle, over the top, and so on. But that's how you break it down to navigate. You're always on a feature of some kind. So if I was to, are you all happy with those features now? You found them on the map. You know what way you describe them. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, no, I can see your thumb. You're a good bit back. That was all. I just couldn't see whether you were kind of going, So I want just to show you a picture. Just track it down. So those of you that are interested in teaching navigation, this is this is the way I teach. I take a massive piece of paper, and polite way of saying this, I brainstorm onto it, and put down what I need to show. I think I'm a bit old school when it comes to, I used to love chalkboards and drawing stuff on the hoof, but I take a massive piece of paper and generally write what I need to do on it. So I wanted just to show you a little bit about that profile I mentioned. the view from the Hillwalker. So we've got those two tops. We've got a saddle between them. We've got a spur running off from either side. We've got a little, not very obvious bits of a tiny little soft, subtle re-entrant just scooping in there, and a mini spur on the sides of these two tops. We don't really have a valley in that. But in terms of then looking at it from profile, it's a bit mathsy, but if each of these contour lines is at a particular flood level above sea level, and in Ordnance Survey maps, the maps that you use for navigating, they're 10 meters generally. There's a couple that are 15 or 20, but the vast majority of the Ordnance Survey maps will be 10-meter intervals. So every time the next contour line comes in, it's 10 meters higher. So I've drawn a profile of that map version from the side. So that's something that unfortunately you have to do in geography class and probably never use again after geography class. But if you like maths, then that can be a nice thing to do because it gives you a proper picture of what you're going to see from the side. But you will get your eye in, and it's much easier to do it just from the map and get used to saying, all right, well, this is here, I'm looking at it, what does it look like on the land? And just get your eye in, practice relating things back and forward to the land. Okay, so this is my other, those of you that teach or want to teach, my lesson plans. Okay, they consist of post-it notes with topics. My biggest fear as a teacher is not using every second of the session to do something useful. So I'm often do too much. But anyway, so I think navigation is something that you can teach forever and never get bored of. There's always other ways, other people's ideas to steal and other things that work. You'll find a challenging student will pop up every now and again that just doesn't get any of the techniques that you've ever used, and you'll then create something new for them. And that's always really exciting as a teacher then, because it's a challenge, and that's what keeps it interesting. But navigation is such an enabler. You can go wherever you like once you can navigate, as long as they can let you in. So it just opens lots of doors for you to learn to navigate. It's nearly as powerful as learning to read. So, you know, you can get into your maps, you can read your maps. It's really useful. Okay, so the reason why I mentioned profile is when you're navigating, if you can break your journey down and say, I'm going to go along this river, and then I'm going to go up that spur onto the ridge, over that little top, down into the saddle, and so on. You can break that down into little points on the way, and you can navigate. You can pick a journey, you can make a route. You can then break those legs down. You can measure how far they are, and then time it or pace it, so that you can get from A to B. Excuse me a sec. So I'm now trying to think where to go to next with you. So those are the features. So those are really important, that you know what they look like on the map, on the land, and that you can use them then to navigate by. So where would you like to go next? Let me think. The other thing that will be useful, so I know everyone's super keen to use compasses. They're these magic tools. But another couple of useful things. On your map, you'll have your scale. Do you all know the scale and how scale works on your maps? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of you may not have done this in class. I don't know. I think my kids did it in primary school, but I might have done it with them before then, but anyway, I think that's when they studied it first, but definitely in secondary school. But on the Ordnance Survey map, the boxes that you have there are 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre. So if you're trying to work out how far you want to walk and so on, then roughly, you know, measure it by box and just say, oh, I'm going around here. That's going to be 1, 2, and just count the boxes around just to get a rough, you know, vague general guesstimate of your distance. So if you want to be very precise, you can measure the box with the ruler on your compass and break it down and say, right, that's half a box, that's 500 meters, and that's a quarter, that's 250. And you can, if you want to be more precise than that, again, you can measure how many millimeters are in the box. So on a this scale map, the 1 to 50,000 map, just take your compass. You've all got compasses that I can see, I think. Put your compass on, get the ruler, the millimeters, and just measure how many millimeters that box is. And then just let me know what you get. Either throw the answer into the chat or just...
Got 40 on mine.
40 on yours, so I know what scale map you're on. Yeah, there's no fixed answer. There's different scale maps, so just don't think you're wrong if you get a different answer. You're not necessarily.
Yeah, I've got both anyway.
Okay, great. They're all scrabbling around now. I'm not sure if it's for compasses, maps, or just exercise. Do you find...
My compass says 1 to 25,000, and then it says 0.5 km.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yep. So there should be a ruler though, you know, just your normal centimeter, millimeter ruler. So just if you pop that onto the box on your map and measure how many millimeters across the box it is, and then let me know what you get.
Ours is 20.
20 millimeters, perfect. So I know what scale you're on. You're on a 1 to 50,000.
Mine's 40 as well.
Yours is 40 because you're on a 1 to 25,000, double the size. Yeah. Okay. Any other numbers? We all getting the same? One of those two?
I'm getting 1 km.
Okay. How many millimeters though?
4. No.
Centimeters?
Centimeters, yeah.
Centimeters, yeah, perfect. So, okay, so the reason why I'm getting you to use your ruler rather than, there's other devices on the compass that will break the box down for you and it'll switch between the different scales. But the ruler is universal. Doesn't matter what map you're on, the ruler will work. And that's why I would teach it. When I learned, most of the time we used 1 to 25,000 maps. When I came to Ireland, most people were using 1 to 50,000 scale maps. But if you go back another few years, they were using half-inch maps, quarter, you know, there's such a range. But now we have 1 to 33,000, 1 to 25,000, 1 to 40,000. So there's loads of different ones. So the ruler is universal. And the quick fix, I suppose, to be able to use the different maps, because they all have their benefits. If you put the ruler on, and it tells you that it's 1 to 20 millimeters. Each of those millimeters is worth whatever the scale of the map is. So a 1 to 50,000 map, 1 millimeter is worth 50 meters on the land. And a 1 to 25 meters on the land. A 1 to 40 is 40 meters and so forth. So that's why that ruler, we all know how to use a ruler, it's universal. So it doesn't matter what scale. And just put it against the map, the grid on the map, or the box on the map, and then you know. So, but most commonly people use 1 to 50, 1 to 25. Harvey's maps are 1 to 30,000. And the UK also have some 1 to 40,000. They're not natural numbers, 40 and 30, when it comes to maps. 25, 12 and a half, 50, you'll see because of the way you can break them down. It's easier to break them down. So, and it's easier to do the maths. So on a 1 to 50,000, 1 millimeter is 50. So what I'm going to get you to do is pick a couple of features on your map and measure the distance between them. All right. So if you need a piece of paper, obviously on the hill, you don't tend to use a piece of paper and write it all down. But if you want to just jot down how many millimeters and how far the distance would be. So 1 millimeter on a 1 to 50, 50 meters, 1 millimeter on a 1 to 25, 25 meters, and work out then.
Jane, can you repeat that question, please?
I can, yeah. So just pick two points, not too far apart, and measure the distance.
Oh, measure it. Okay.
Yeah, just measure the distance between them. If you don't know how to measure the distance, stick your hand up and I will talk you through it. It's no problem. I didn't really teach it. I just told you how the ruler works. And when you've got it in the chat, if you just write down the number of millimeters and then the distance that means. And if you've got a question, ask it, because someone else in the room will want to know the answer as well. I can guarantee it. You won't be the only one. Yep.
Are you supposed to measure a straight line?
Yes. If that's what you're measuring, yes. Good question. Clodagh, did you use a calculator to work yours out?
Be good. I don't know if you know.
Say again, sorry. Go on, Clodagh.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure if you were calling me. It's Keela.
I'm so sorry. My daughter's called Quiva, but
Very strange spelling. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
yeah. No, but I would expect you to. And yeah, it raises a useful point. I've just put a couple of examples up. You know, if you measure 10 millimeters on a 1 to 50,000 map, and if you measure 10 millimeters on a 1 to 25,000 map, you'll get obviously different answers because they each represent different distances. So Jenny, 42 millimeters. You're on a 1 to 25.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5 millimeter. Yeah. So they're on, Sean and John, you're on 1 to 25,000 maps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
It's like I was just, you know, one place that I know quite well is from Mealmore Lodge to the wall. There's that stretch. So that's what I was measuring there. So that was like
perfect.
3 millimeters, because I know it quite well. So I said that's 3 millimeters. So then I was able to, so it's actually 75 meters.
Yeah. And does that match with what you think? Yeah.
It gives me a very good visual then, because I know the piece quite well.
Yeah. And I think that's what I was trying to grasp at earlier as well, around that you can get your eye in the distance.
Exactly.
The judging distance on the land. And it's a skill. It takes time, like giving someone in a teaching situation the ability to visualize something like that. So a swimming pool, most people, well, in Ireland, most pools are 25 meters. That would be a soccer pitch, but that can be varied as well, but in and around 100 meters. So it just gives something that they can relate to.
Yeah.
So, because that is also a useful skill. It's like, I'm so far away from that feature. You can't just get a tape measure out and measure it, particularly, but you can say, well, it looks about 50 meters away. And if your eye is good, then it's actually useful. Whereas if you say it's about 50 and then you pace it out and you see it's 200 meters, then your eye isn't that much use to you at that time. It needs training. But Okay, so there's a couple more, 3.5 centimeters. I'm not sure what scale map, is that 3.5 centimeters or 3.5? Fionn, where are you? Oh, sorry, no, you just said oops, calculating. Perfect, I see your second message there. So 2 3/4. Yeah, so 2 centimeters would be a kilometer. The 1 centimeter would be 500 meters, and 0.5 centimeter then is the last bit that you're trying to calculate, I'd imagine. So are you on a 1 to 50,000 scale map, Fionn? Yes, okay, perfect. So there's a few ways to do it. So if you're, the reason I think potentially why you're struggling to kind of calculate is A, because it's a long distance. So it's kind of a lot of numbers of 25 or 50 to multiply by. So to make it easier for you all measuring longer distances, 2 centimeters or 20 millimeters is a kilometer. So you can kind of knock that off your 3.5 centimeters. You can knock that off. So you then down to 1.5 centimeters, and that's 3/4, if that makes sense. It's really hard when I can't see faces to know if you're getting it or not. But if it's 35 millimeters, 20 millimeters for a kilometer, that leaves 15 left, and it's 3/4 of the second kilometer. So the answer would be 1,750 meters, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Now, yeah, great. I'm getting the yeses back. Okay, so what would be helpful is if they could make a scale that does the calculations for you. So you don't have to start, especially on a longer distance, and you don't have to start. Yes, you can watch last week's session. It was recorded. It wasn't on navigation though, but yes, I have a recording of it, so I can make sure you get the link to that. Okay. And I will send an email after this to links to videos where I spend a lot more time on all of these topics. So on your compass, yeah. So on your compasses, you will see some of these fellows, depending on what type of compass you've got. If you just put something white behind it, I'll be able to see what's on it. Do you not have a ruler on yours, Annie? And forgive me if I'm giving the wrong names now. Yeah, just so I've got a bit of contrast. It's hard to see on the screen otherwise. Is there looks to be a ruler across the end, but none of these things. Okay, well, you can buy for about 50 cents. Yeah, so there's plenty of these. Oh yeah, your friend, are there some on that one there? The second, does that one have it? Just stick a thumbs up if they do. But you can actually buy a little piece of plastic. They're about 50 cents of all of these. It's called a Roma, and it will have all of these scales on it and a ruler and bits and pieces of use. And you can buy one of those. Yeah, so yours looks like it has, John, a Roma, but down the side. And it's breaking it up into kilometer boxes for you. That's what these are doing. And then in that kilometer box, you have to pick the right scale for the map you're using, then break it down into smaller portions, 100 meters and so on. But this kilometer box for the 1 to 50, that's going to be 20 millimeters plus. It's just try and remove the need to do the 25 or the 50 times table. You can also make a card with it. If I did a session on maths for the mountains, because some people, when you start talking numbers at all, are straight back into school. maybe had a bad time in school in maths class and they just glaze over. And it's just so common. Like the maths for what we use in the mountains is not complex, but if your experience of maths in the past is not successful, then it can really make it difficult for you to get your head around something when, especially when you're online, you're not in front of someone. You can't even just say, right, well, there's your measurement. Now let's walk it on the ground. You lost some of that tangible bit of it. So yeah, definitely the Roma can be very useful, but the ruler, like I keep saying, like it's the best one. It's universal. So just if you've measured, 10 centimeters, then that's a box and then a box and then a box, and you're just measuring the extra little bit at the end of it. And the other benefit of that is it's longer. So if you're going to buy a new compass, if you get a long base plate, it's really useful because it gives you room to measure longer distances. But you've also got one of these on your thing, so you can measure the distance with that. Don't stretch it too much. Some of these are a bit stretchy. But measure that, because that question you asked that I said was a really good question. Do I go straight? You measure the route you're going. So if you're measuring a straight section, say you're on the Mourne Wall, and it's dead straight because it's man-made, then that's what you measure. But if your route is curved, you're following a river, then that's what you need to measure. And then you straighten it out and put it onto the edge of the map has a ruler as well, if your compass doesn't. So say you're measuring a long leg, and it's too long for your compass, you can just put it onto the map, because each box is a kilometer, and there's a scale somewhere in the legend with the distance somewhere. There it is. There, sorry. So on the bottom of this would be more like you'd see in geography class. See the scale on the bottom of the map. So you can put your piece of string along there if you've got a long distance to measure and count how many kilometers. And then at the beginning of that scale, it will give you a more detailed. Where's it gone again? Here.
Jane,
Yeah.
if I don't have a compass, what works for me sometimes, my little finger is pretty much 1 centimeter. So if I know the scale of the map, I can, if it's not a really long distance, obviously.
Yeah, no, I use the same. It works really well because you've always got your hand with you, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you could do that now and find out which are your digits, which knuckle is your kilometer knuckle. And that way you've always got it with you. So no, that's a really good tip. I like that. So on, where's it gone again? Sorry, I keep losing this scale. And I used to teach geography. Anyway, just down here at the very bottom of the map, it breaks it down into the smaller 100-meter sections on this kilometer scale here. So you can put your long string along the kilometers and then use that last little bit to measure the extra bits. That dog is well loved. Okay, do you guys need to, I'm just conscious of the time. We're almost at the end of the time, guys. There's so much more, but definitely I will send you an email with the links, but there's a stack of videos on the website. I'm sorry, we barely scratched at the surface, guys, but distance measurement and the features, they are the fundamentals, the map setting. So if you're trying to work out where you are, always stop, set your map, check it with your compass, get it lined up. Always get the information front, back, left and right. What's actually happening? Get your evidence, the real evidence. Then look back at the map. Where do I think I am? And see, does that line up with that evidence that you've just found? And if it doesn't, respond to that. Don't just say, no, I'll make it fit. If it's not going down in front of you and the map says it should be, you're not where you think you are. And you go back, then the evidence is real. The map is what you want it to be sometimes. So, but yeah, so on the website, mountain training, skills videos, There's poor visibility nav, there's maps for the mountains, there's features, there's taking a bearing. And I'm sorry, whoever was asking me about a compass and bearings, somebody did ask, and I did say I'd do it. If you think back to the north at the top of the map, if I want to head due south, I'm going to be walking, like if you think of the degrees in your circle, so due north is 0 and south is 180 degrees. And I'm sorry if you think this is very basic, but a number of people know how to take a bearing but don't understand what they're actually measuring. They don't get the principle behind it. So straight up on your map is north. If you're heading south, you're going to be walking on a bearing of 180 degrees because you're measuring the angle from north around to where you want to go. I'm probably doing that backwards because I'm looking at it backwards. So if you want to go from due east, then you're going to travel from north. Due east is 90 degrees. It's a quarter of a circle. So that's what the compass is measuring. You're lining up your grid lines up north of the map and measuring the angle to where you want to head. So there is a very clear video on taking a bearing on the website. It's about 2 to 4 minutes long, and it's apparently there's like 55,000 odd people last time I looked had looked at it and said it was clear. So I hope it will work for you, but there's just not time to do it justice really. But that fundamental understanding, you're measuring the angle from north, I think a lot of folk miss. Right, I'm going to stop. I could keep going for the day, but I won't. So just to let you know, the next week's session, these are all standalone sessions. So the first session was really a discussion to try and find out what we can do for young people, what we need to do to get it right for you. You can ask us for things. So if you want to follow up with an email or ring the office, I'm asking you and inviting you to tell us what we need to do for you. We don't have a lot of young people in our membership, and I'm a bit ashamed of that, because you're our future and we really need you to be involved. It doesn't need to be membership, it needs to be skills, I think, so you can do what you want to do. So do call, do ask for help, do tell us what we need to do for you. So today was the Hillwalking. Tomorrow, the next one is on scrambling and mountaineering skills, and then the one after that is on climbing skills, so rock climbing or wall climbing skills. They're very much skills based like today, the next two. But come along, you've never climbed before, come along, find out what it's about. If you've not been scrambling before, definitely come along because it's excellent fun. Yep. There's a couple of books in our shop as well if you need some kind of textbook, if that floats your boat, which will have lots of nice diagrams and resources, presentations on the website as well. So sorry it's not longer, but I won't keep you any longer on a Sunday. Oh, sorry, there's a question there, Sean.
Yeah, just thanks, Jane. Just like to wish good luck to Jenny for her lowland leader. I'm actually doing my training tomorrow for lowland leader. I've done my mountain skills already, but I just at the other Bible, the Hillwalking Bible, I've noticed a mistake in it the other day on the Nesmith's rule. I don't know if you can see that, but they've got like 18.5 minutes on a 5 kilometer speed to do 700 meters. How did I notice that? I was making a couple of cards for friends of mine that are doing it, and I've got it down to 8.5, but they have 18.5 minutes there.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, they are actually editing. I'm trying to think whether we're doing the climbing book at the minute. So these books, myself and my peers in kind of England, Scotland, Wales, or whatever, we edit them every now and again. We didn't write them, but we kind of manufacture them, I suppose. And so we're going through the edit of the rock climbing book at the minute. I can't remember when the last edition of the Hillwalking went out, but yeah, I'll mention that typo in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's just I found it. I just made a couple of those cards for the guys that are doing it. It's got the 5Ds on the back and stuff.
So what was the distance? 700?
Yeah, 700.
5K an hour. Any height?
Yeah. No, it's not giving height. Doesn't give height on it for some reason. But
yeah.
Just, cool. Yeah, just the 700 meter one. If you look it up, you probably have the book there anyway. So
I do.
Yeah.
I don't know what edition mine is, though. You see, they did do a revamp. So if you've got a really old edition, maybe the new
I've
one
got
picked it up. But...
the revised 3rd edition, so
Oh, that sounds like the latest.
pretty new.
Yeah, they probably stopped looking at that bit to revise it. It's like, yeah, that's just timing. That's grand. It's done. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen. Thanks for that. I shall mention that in the team.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you very
guys.
much.
Okay,
Thanks, guys.
thank you. Okay.
Have a good weekend.
You all too.
Bye.
Thanks so much for coming, everybody. Lovely
Thanks.
to meet you.